Hello and welcome to the studio tour of my studio slash workshop slash man cave, call it what you want. A video I've been wanting to make for a long time, but there's always one final thing I'd like to finish, or something comes in that makes a huge mess in here, and that isn't really a good time to make a studio tour. I've been forced to make this video since I am actually going to move out from here in a month or so. Those who followed my channel know that I've gotten a divorce and I found a new house where I'm moving, so my wife is keeping this house, so that will be interesting to see what this room will become in her hands. But that's not what this video is about. This video is what I have done with this during the 5 years I've worked here, or lived here. I've lived here. I've also worked here, but especially the last year in the pandemic. But when I moved in here, it was just an old garage where they had closed the garage port, so you couldn't open that, and they had just had it as storage. And it was just concrete walls all around, and then I built an inner shell from OSB mainly, and then built in the furniture, and all the features that you will see here is built in, so to speak, built for the room. So that will be interesting to see what in my new place. I found a new place, I said that. In that new place there is a room similar to this, not exactly, but of course you can't have that, but very similar to this. Only thing is that it is a bit lower in roof, and I've utilized the roof very much in this studio, so that will be an interesting change to keep in mind. So I'll start over here in this end, and we'll go round around the whole workshop studio, and I'll try to explain everything, all the good things, all the bad things, and things. I've done many different features and workarounds that I thought would be good, but in the end wasn't. So I'll try to cover them all in this video. So let's start in the middle here. This is the door that you come in through. It holds a few things that is just on their way out right now. Bags. This is a hammock actually. I did put up a few nice things to look at. This is Jean Barton. Oh, let's see what they're called. They're going down anyway. Jan Arthur's Bertrand, Earth from Above. So it went all around the world taking pictures from airplanes and helicopters down and stuff. Really like those. A few other stuff. Rules for me and for the kids down by the handle. So what the rules for things that you take out of this room. Doesn't work, especially not on me, but rule number 1, don't force me to make any rules. Rule number 2, borrow if you want to, but put them back on the right place, not where you took them, because they're not always in the right place, and you're not supposed to place it in the wrong place. If that's where you took it, you're supposed to place it in the correct place. And if you use any material, clean it up and throw it and everything else on its place. That's the only rules, and I wish I could obey them. So anyway, once you get in, the studio is built up in sections, so there's a section for everything, and this is the middle of the electronic section. So if I zoom out a bit here and down a bit, something like that, and focus around here. So on this wall is my component stash, so it's just full of these small bins with that's just packed with components, resistors, capacitors, diodes, yeah, components, everything. And some have red dots on them. That means that somewhere there are more of those values. For example, 10K resistors. In the box there's only these, but of course 10K resistors, it's like you just throw them in everything, so there is a bigger box over there for that later. There's also, that I'll show later, there's also the IC holders, stuff like that. They are like all these that are in these long tubes are extras is lying up here in the roof. As I said, I try to use the roof as much as I can. And this is the reason they are there is because that is quite close to my electronics workplace, which is this here. So this is where I sit and solder everything. Over the years I have changed it around a bit. From the start I only had the plywood as a bench surface. I did, after I watched a video by Alexander Chappelle, who made a table with a mat. It is called a linoleum mat. So I really like that, so I went down to the local carpet shop and bought a piece, and I actually put them on all my surfaces because it is absolutely wonderful as a working surface. I really like it, and this matte color I really liked as well. I was going to make a video about this, but he already did that, so I just wanted, he made a super nice table. This is just a more simple table, and just wanted to make a short video to show that you can put this on anything. You don't need to make a whole new table and put this on. So I say that here now instead. Those few 1 minute could have been a whole video. I have upgraded my soldering iron a few times. This is the latest one. It is, I do not recommend this one. First of all, it is the JCD 8898. I don't recommend it because the tip you got with it was really good, worked quite a long time, but I also bought loads of extra tips with it, and they just vanish. I go through tips like nothing else, and I've never seen that before, and I don't know why that is. I did at the same time, about the same time, try to start to use lead-free solder, and if that has something to do with it, I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah, so I need to pause the video and turn it back on because of a limitation in the camera. And that's because I use an old Canon 650D, I believe. Old camera, that one of the oldest one that does full HD video recording, but that's so I bought it used to keep the costs down. People are always interested in what kind of equipment you use, so that's why I explain. Watching the camera, I'm using a zoom Canon zoom lens EFS 1018. That's like the only one I use. Sometimes when I sit work here and I want to do a more of a close-up, I use the stock one, 5580 I think, but it's almost always this one that I just zoom in and out to get the different angles. I think this is the wide lens, not the fisheye, just the zoom lens that's kind of in the middle, something like that. The wide angle. I don't know what to. We have a Swedish word, lagom, which means perfect in the middle. Like it's not too hot, not too cold. It's there in the perfect spot. And we have a word for it, but I haven't found a good English word for it. Anyway, this lens is in the lagom spot for making these kind of videos in a contained space like this. Continue with cameras. I do all the build videos I make. I have this one, just an old GoPro sitting there, and then I solder there and record that. That's for the, if you ever bought any of my kits and watched the build videos for those kits, it's probably recorded on that one. Let's see, what do we see here? So this one I added a few years ago. Very nice to have a working light that is also a magnifying glass, which is really good for those really tiny components. So I often, if I'm out somewhere, I often go over here just to look at the component and then go back to do whatever I was doing. So you never lose the magnifying glass. It's also very good. I did add this hose that goes here, and I used a button, one of those. I built a button for the 433 megahertz wavelength of those controllers that you can turn sockets on and off. So I had this connected to a vacuum cleaner. The hose went up in the roof, over and out over there, but the vacuum cleaner broke and I never bought the new one, so now it's just a handle. This should actually be there because this was much better than what I went to later on with just a fan and a piece of foam to reduce the noise, but that is what I'm using right now. But this with a hose, much better. Did make a lot of noise though, so that's not so good. But anyway, so here is where I sit and solder. I have here 3 kits that I'm hoping that I can solder before I move out of this place. Not sure I'm going to be able to do that though. I did make this stand to have all my soldering tools on, or the tools that I need to make modules, because that's basically everything I do nowadays. There's a small shelf I did here, which I can place these containers in, which is from over there. So if I need many of those, I can just go over and place them there, and you can see that, I think, yes. Some, yeah, just simple connections. Let's move you down a bit. To my height. Some screwdrivers, stuff like that. This is, if you're having trouble with keeping order of your cables, I can really recommend this old toilet rolls. And you just take your cable, take your 2 ends, and then in toilet roll kind of lengths. You just roll them out, put them in, and you get a system like I have over here, so you can easily see all your cables that you have. And that way you just go over, pull it out, and believe it or not, but I can grab one here in the middle, and it usually stays in place, so not quite good for keeping track of your cables. Of course, it's just shelves with stuff. Those hangers for DuPont cables, I 3D printed a few of those. I found one that is really good, but the latest ones I found is not good at all. I haven't found that again, so that's the problem, and that's why I only have one of those good ones. And otherwise, everything I found on Thingiverse really bad, never the correct size, stuff like that. So yeah. Moving up, this is just storage. These are projects that I am working on, all the way up, things that I've gotten sent to me, stuff like that. Here, these are here because they should be closed, because they are all my PNPs, op amps, and CMOS logic circuits. So there's 3 boxes for those, and they just stand there. And yeah, just storage. Moving along. Alright, just next to the electronics workbench is my computer workbench. This is where I sit and do all computer related work. This is the workspace that I think I've changed most times over those years, and I'm still not. I'm quite happy with it, but it still has some things that I don't like. At the computer, I surf the web and look for information. I look at videos. I listen to music. Because electronics is so much in the computer nowadays, I make PCBs and schematics on here. I edit and publish my videos and work in Inkscape, making panels and all that. So there's so much work that is done here in such a wide spectrum of things that I need to do. Plus that during the pandemic I've had my laptop from the work here when I worked from home, and been sitting here working with that. That means that this place always has a lot of stuff that should be here, but also because it's so close, and you just, here's the electronics workbench, here's the computer workbench. Things tend to just slide over. When I need more space there, it just slides over here, and the same to that place or bench. So that's not good, that's not optimal, and maybe have a wall all the way out here, so I really can't just slide things over and take away the visual element of the other workbench would be good. And also I think these segments are 80 centimeters to 80 centimeter segments. It is totally fine for the electronics workbench, but for for this, and because of all the amount of different kinds of work that is done here, I think this workbench needs to be bigger. And yeah, I also do this workbench. I have another workbench for this as well, but also all the packaging I do for the when I get an order, some of them is still done here. So there's stuff for that as well, because the printer is right there. But so yeah, there's always stuff here. Here's one of the newest things. I want to make a PCB for these membrane keyboards. There's always notes and notes and notes in so many forms, and there's old hard drives with video material, and so this place is very often a mess, and I just work over it. Unfortunately, that's not good. There needs to be place to put paper and notes on the sides, and there's not when you only have 80 centimeters, so that's a thing to have in mind. From the start, I did actually have two old laptops standing here, having two screens, but I then updated to a newer laptop which had a broken screen monitor, so I just put on up to normal monitors. So, and this works really good. This works. I have no problem with that. What I have problem with is that I put on up things here to hang papers, which means that I put them here because I need to have them in front of me, so I know what I need. I really need to remind myself of these things, but that means that I usually do like that, and then they slowly turn back down, and I can't see that. The camera that I'm using now, I did a holder for that, so I can put it up there, and I thought that wouldn't impair my visualization of the screen, because I thought it was only going to be up in that corner like so, and you barely look in that corner. I thought, but you look in that corner a lot. So that one is just a really bad placement to hang a camera as well. But that was because I wanted to have it close. As soon as I want to record something, just take it out. When I want to dump the files from the camera into the computer, hang it there, cable into the computer, close nearby, very good. But it's not like, don't have anything that in any way impairs the sight to your monitors. That's the only thing I can recommend when it comes to this. I can, if I sit there and work at the electronics workbench, I can put this one out so I can see a schematics or something there, but usually I print schematics out. It's a better way for me, I think. Going up, printer, and here is a few like I had hard drives and stuff like that, and pens I had down on the desk before, but then I moved them all up here, so that shouldn't be a clutter anyway, and that's actually quite good. I can actually recommend that. I always have a bunch of papers here, so there's always quick to get a piece of paper out and make a note. That's a good thing to have. Did you know that different pens like to be stored in different directions? Like ball ball tip pens like these, they like to be stored upright, because then the you call it the ink is going down to the ball tip. But many other pens like these should be stored lying down. So that's why I did this construction down up there, to just have the different styles of pens to be in the correct position for some reason. And loads of those, good for, I think my kids use them more than me, but it's always good to have different colored pens for doing more advanced notes and or drawings. And going up, it's just storage. That I recently bought these from IKEA instead. Before I had these cardboard boxes. Let me get one. Before I had these cardboard boxes for everything, and all these shelves are made for these, so they're 20 by 30 centimeters. Thankfully, these small ones with the lid is also 20 by 30, so I could easily replace all the cardboard boxes with these to make it easier to see my stuff. So, and what is here is just what I'm using often, like stuff for the camera, other lenses, stuff like that, GoPro, soldering stuff, hard drives. I use a lot of hard drives. So that is those two areas. Let's move on to the next one. I should mention, before I start talking about equipment, I use Lightworks for editing videos. It's a freeware version that does at least 720p in the freeware version. It's a bit different. I used to work with iMovie and then my MacBook crashed. It was really old, so it had the right to do that. And then I switched to something, and I found Lightworks, and I found a flow in that now, so that's what I work. So anyway, now we're in the biggest part of the workshop studio, the music studio. It is biggest because it has the most parts. It has the studio desk right here. It has the all the synthesizers, keyboards over there, rack space up there. There's a song booth in the roof, and there's a jam table in the roof here. And then I have my modular on a cart that I can move around. So all these parts I have to show in different sections. So let's start with that. The studio table is made, first when I made it I saw a video with someone who actually had a tabletop but placed at kind of like this angle all the way up, and had just put synthesizers, desktop controllers and everything, pedals on that big sheet. I think the name of the artist was Jack with a French spelling, and I did that first, but then I thought, for me to be able to sit and work with this, I need to make a hole. So I built a hole with a shelf so I can have my speakers there. So that space disappeared, and then I thought I could make holes to put all my rack equipment in. So I made holes and sides for that, and sooner rather than later I realized that no, this is the way to go, because then it was just this strip here left, and it just felt strange to have that. So I just removed that, put 2 monitors there. I did afterwards add the patch bay here, which is quite good, so it just patches down to the Tindie 003 from Avid Pro Tools. That is what I'm working with. An old Pro Tools version 8, which this one still works with. It's a really nice controller, motorized faders, all that, and quite recently I bought this one. I had a Command 8 before that, but I've been working in Pro Tools all the time. So this it ended up like this, and then to fix the keyboard I added a pull-out like this, which is really nice. So if I just want to sit and work at the computer, I have my keyboard, which I before had here or here or here. This space is way too small. You need way more table space in a studio than what I have here, and this is always cluttered with cables and stuff, so that's a big problem. You need more table space for this. But to fix the keyboard, the computer keyboard problem, I added another draw out shelf for that. So this is actually quite nice, except that it's a bit low for my legs, but other than that, this is a great setup because I can sit, play, write commands, and then have the faders all in good reach. Yeah, and the speakers are at my listening height, so that is good. I did search for a way to have all my rack equipment close by as well, and when I did this halfway, like 1 or 2 years in, I realized that I need to go up in the roof with a lot of things, and rack equipment, you don't usually touch them too much. I have the things I touch the most is just in reach. So for example, here's a compressor that I can, if I want to, I can reach out and change it, but otherwise I stand up and do all the changes up here. So this was the idea I had, was to put the rack up above, but still have them so they're not in the way. And this, they're not in the way. I can really go in and work on the back side of the Tindie 003 with the loose cables and stuff like that, and still not be close to these. And I can also, there's never any risk of me going and accidentally bumping my head in this. So it's a really nice system for that. I'm afraid that it won't work in my new studio because the roof is way too far down, so this won't work there because you need quite a lot of space up for that. But I do realize that these are just, I can just take these out, flip them around and place them on the floor, and they will be normal rack cases that you usually have in studios, I guess. Also, the reason they look like this and the reason they can be up here is that they are only connected up front with 2 screws, and there's a hinge at the bottom, so this whole thing hinges down, and there's these seat belt straps that they hang in when they're down, which makes it possible for me to just stand on a stool or something, and I can reach all the cables in the back and reroute stuff and connect and disconnect MIDI and all that. So don't think I ever did a good video on this one either. That was also the plan, but that also did not happen. So here's the rundown of that. Just make a case like this and put the hinge down there and screws up there, and you can have that, all the rack stuff out of the way in a really simple way. I really like this format, except for the fact that if you need to work a lot with these, then it is a bit heavy on the arms. Moving into this space, again, this is a space that I wasn't finished with. I had an idea to make a shelf that would swivel out to here, because it would fit just in between these two here, and I would have all my keyboards out, so I could sit out there and play the keyboards in a somewhat of an angle, but still have access to them. Now I need to go in here, which is totally fine, and get access to them. Usually I just take one and put it outside on a keyboard stand out there anyway. And this is also, because it is a bit off, it has also turned into a storage space for keyboards and stuff that is not used that often, unfortunately. And below is also just storage. Before, all my rack stuff was down here instead, but now they're up there. This is also the song booth, so to compress again, to have everything. I don't sing that often or have people come in and sing that often, but when I do, it is really nice to have a song booth, and that is in the roof, so I can just, let's see, one thing sticking out there. I can just take this down, and then I have these foam walls, like so. Let's not have that one, because then I can't. Let's take this one down. There, and foam here, and this one swivel out like that. And then I take my microphone stand, put here, and you get a really damp sound in here, muffled, the studio kind of sound where nothing is bouncing around. And if you have some lyrics, you can just put them up like that, which is also very good. This is foam from a computer or something. I just took them straight out of the box, and in here you can see it is a rack unit, like so, but works very well for this. And that's the song booth. And then we have, of course, the modular. This is recently built a cart that is just that you move around. I'll have the, I was going to make a video about this, building this as well, but it's super simple, and you can make it out of one piece of plywood. You can make this whole case, except for a few pieces down here. Actually you can do it with one piece of plywood, but all the pieces are not in the drawing that I've made, that I'm going to share sooner or later. So it's basically just 4 boxes, 60 centimeters, so that's 120 HP, 4 boxes, and then a frame for that, and a few casters. So very simple. And then we have the last part of the studio, kind of, which is again in the roof. So I need to move the camera back here and move some stuff. One thing to note, as soon as you need to move stuff to get to other stuff, it's not good. We'll get to my storage space. That works. That is, the whole storage needs to move. That is totally fine, because you move it once and you have it is electrified, so it moves by itself. But this thing that you need to have, so carts, while carts is really good, like for my tools cart is really good. As soon as I want a tool, I just bring out the tool cart. That's good, but it would be even better if it actually has a place and you don't need to move it from there, because this, oh no, now I need to move everything just to get to this stuff up here. That is a hurdle and a break that maybe makes me not want to use this stuff as much. So always have that in mind. I did have that in mind, but then the carts came in and they work well because space was, I didn't have more space. When this is what I have, and that's, so always trying to expand, but carts is not always that good. So anyway, that table I talked about, Jack, his table with all the stuff on a standing desk, I couldn't let that idea go, and for jamming I really think that having those desktop machines on a slanted shelf is really nice. So that's why I came up with this jam table. So what you have is all my desktop synths and drum machines. Usually there's a 303 and a 606 here as well, and an iPad over there, but they have already gone into storage. But so this, and I've done a few jams here, so if you followed my channel, you know this as a place where I stand and jam. And it's very nice. You can get to everything very easily. The things you use the most is on these two rows. Then the things you just switch on and off up here, and just twiddling the effects and the mixer up here. And as you can see, these are rack units that is lying down really flat up like so. So it's a really simple build as well. It's just piano hinges in the back. These are again this is not seat belt. This is for loading, like securing loads on pickups and stuff like that. Belts, so they can take a lot of weight. There's also a spring, two spring loaded, not spring, gas loaded, just to make it a bit easier to lift it up. So yeah, a really good idea if you have a high roof, and this takes up 10 centimeters when it's up. It just takes up 10 centimeters of your roof, and you have this whole place just waiting for you to take down and start playing with. Did not use this much enough that I should have. I should have used this much more, but yeah, there's always so many projects and so many things that take away from everything else. That's also a lesson. Don't have too many hobbies or too many interests, or don't pursue them all, at least. Right now I'm pursuing the modular, of course, so that's my main focus right now. I also did manage to add one damping mat in here. One could also say that these three here is part of the studio, because this is where I hang my bass, my guitar and some other instruments, and my Yamaha SHS-10. Turning over to storage. Storage is, the bulk of the storage is in these three shelves. They are nowadays, before I had a crank to move them around, nowadays they are on two long screws that are connected to two motors from these kind of, like just the motor of these that I found and added to the, yeah, you can see it down here. Here's one, and there is the motor. Let's dive in so you can see that. Here's the thing, and yeah, so that is moves these shelves from side to side so I can get to it, to all the stuff. If we begin here, I did on this shelf right here, I added some French cleat system to be able to have some tools that I could bring out when I needed to. And the rest then, so I have a panel over here where I push and it moves it, and this way I don't need to wait for this to be done, because I can just go in as soon as there's enough room to go in. I can go in and get the stuff that I want. And so these are, there's a whole video on this system, but they're 50 centimeters wide, or 51 actually, and then there's a 1 centimeter divider in between, an OSB board. On this side there's 20 centimeters for the French cleat system, and on this side it's 30 centimeters for more of these boxes, and the same here, 30 centimeters, and it's just these boxes all the way. So as you can see, I have started to replace them with these plastic boxes instead from IKEA, to see a bit more what's inside. But other than that, it is just from top to bottom, it is the same kind of boxes over and over, just to get as much storage out as possible. The one in the middle, before I could hand crank it, but now I just move it by hand, like so. And it's just the two on the side that can be moved with a motor. I can move this one with the motor, that it can push two shelves, although they are packed with stuff right now, so it is struggling a bit. But because it's a screw that is pushing it forward, it actually doesn't take, it can push them both if I really want to. And it's an Arduino. Let's show the control mechanism as well. So here's the mechanism. So here's the Arduino, and just 4 relays that switches in between which motor in which way it should turn. Never did a video on that, I think, but anyway, so the Arduino actually has a program that if I want to open 2, 3, I press that button and that will push one those two that way, and then that one it will move back. But something happened and it really doesn't work as I would like anymore. So here we are again. So here we have 20 centimeter and 20 centimeter, and this is so I can have, so this is where all my extra components, remember over there where I said there's a red dot, this is where I have, for example, 100k resistors, 1000 pack or 1k, there's a bunch here, 10 mega ohm resistors, very many. I do not know what I'm going to do with that many of that, and just piles and piles. 20 centimeter is perfect for these. So these are Thai takeaway boxes. I have not eaten this much Thai, even though I do eat a lot, but instead I bought from the place where the Thai takeaway places buy these boxes from. I bought 500 of them directly from them, so I could just fill this up nice and quickly. So works for that. These boxes, again from IKEA, instead of having them like this, where they take up 30 centimeters, you place them like so, and it's 20 centimeters. So uniformity is really good. Also the brown boxes, which I don't have here, they're also 20 centimeters, so you can put them on the side in here as well. So in here is just parts. Yeah, you can see. Let's see. Up here is some paint and glue and all that jazz, and then, as I said, just parts all the way down. There are some CDs and DVDs down there that is never used anymore. That's the thing, when you have a system like this, you do tend to forget about the things you don't use, and they just end up being there. So might have to take a look at that sometime. Same on this side, but on this side there's more hardware stuff, so screws and nuts and all that, and a few tools all the way up. And we have one final shelf. And this shelf, so we have, this one is quite dark in here, but so this is the 30 centimeter side, loads of papers, books, stuff like that, mostly, and archive stuff down here, projects that I'm not using or working with anymore. I have about 1,000 of these CDs that I produced and made like a month before MP3 took off. So yeah, There's maybe I should start sending those along in my when I send people stuff. But I guess no one has a CD player anymore. Anyways, in here, old records and record players and stuff that is, so this shelf is 40 centimeters. So these are another kind of IKEA boxes, and I also have new ones for that, which are see-through. You see one in there, which are 40 centimeters or 30 centimeters like that. So they work in the 30 centimeter shelf in there or in the 40 there. And that's for a bit bigger stuff. Part of the storage is my tools cart. It has expanded over the years with more and more stuff on the side. As you can see, it's really nice to have though. I really like this. There's a whole video on how to do this. It was inspired by a tools cart that Adam Savage has, and I made this because I really liked what he had, and this is my interpretation of that. He didn't have any files for how to make it, so that's why I just used loads and loads of pictures and in that video to make this. I think it's quite a good representation, and it really works for me. Some things that I don't use as often that maybe shouldn't have such a prominent place, but yeah, it's good to have them there once I do use them. If I should have one thing that you really shouldn't have, is one of those big boxes to catch all, a catch-all box that literally catches all, and you get this mess with stuff that you can't use for anything. So that's not a good part of this design. Another part of the storage is, if we go back to these again, because they are storing my guitar space and other stuff, and also the shelves behind here, especially this section here, is also storage. The reason I take this up as its own thing is because I thought when I put these up quite recently that this was a good idea to have sort of a storage with some of the nice looking stuff on the outside of all the stuff on the back. But again, this is, you need, so if I now want to go into my server and 3D printing area in here, then I need to move 3 of these all the way over here just to get to this place. And it's just a hassle, and it just makes you not want to do that, and you just have everything and you sit and work like that. It's not a good way to work. Yeah, so just saying that this shelf right here is also just storage, where there are stuff that I seldom use. Here's speakers for when I play outside, that I don't do that often, but when I do, it's really nice to have them. There's green screen, I think there's a blue screen, and some other stuff. Very seldom use. Could be in a better place for long-term storage, I guess, that I don't have, so that's why I use this. And the same up here, I just have a bunch of old open reel or reel-to-reel tapes, because this one, because it looks very good, I thought I should have that there, but then I got these shelves which just hides it from view, so yeah, I have to figure something out for that in the new place. So note to self, while this may seem like a good idea with rails like this to optimize space, it's not good at all. They're just in the way, and don't use that. And also, things you don't use, try to get them out of your studio to a better place, so you have more space for the stuff that you really need to have close by. Alright, so this space here is my server and 3D printing area. So here I just have one of these chairs because I don't usually sit here very often or very long periods of time. I just sit here to fix something on my server, which is also a laptop. I use a lot of laptops. Old ones, always very old ones, cheap ones or free ones, stuff just lying around. And so I have a bunch of disk drives here. There's a lot of notes with stuff that I should download to print or download for other reasons. Yeah, this place is always a mess as well. And on this computer I also have the 3D printing software and CNC printing software. So let me zoom up here a bit. So here I have the MakeSmith CNC machine, which is do-it-yourself CNC machine that you can't buy anymore, but you can buy a much bigger one, the Maslow CNC, which I do have one, but I haven't built it together. I bought it but never built it because I didn't have space for that. But I do have this one. It just uses a Dremel, and I've done a few things with it but never got it to work that well, unfortunately. There are more of these cables in here from the same system that was over at the electronics table. These pipes that was supposed to hang on this one, and it just goes up in pipes that was to a place behind the wall where I had my vacuum. This is the M3D. It's a really small printer. It prints 8 by 8 by 8 centimeters, I believe. And I've used it a lot, printed quite a lot with it, these smaller things. I recently did get a much bigger 3D printer, which I'll show in a bit. And then also up here is the Maki box, one of the worst deals I've made, which it's a DIY 3D printer. They had good intentions, but in the end it ended up quite badly. But yeah, so it's made of laser cut acrylic parts, the whole thing, and yeah. And then you just have 3D filament, stuff not used, and some routers and network stuff, that kind of stuff. With this, as I said, I also have a bigger 3D printer. So, and that's on another cart. So, if we move out. So when I want to use this printer, because there was no space for this huge printer, it weighs a ton and it is massive, so I had to put it on a cart over there and then just drag it over here when I am ready to print, and I just put it somewhere around here and connect it to the computer and print. So this is the Duplicator 5 and one How printer. I can't say too much about it. It's good, I guess. For the price I got it for, a friend who bought a bigger, better one, and I got this one for around 120 bucks, which is a super nice price for a 3D printer of this size. And I think you can, like 25 by 20, and then almost half a meter high is what you can print with this. But I haven't used it too much. But it is there. We talked about the storage there, and next section is actually more storage down there on the floor, more now than it has been before, but because I'm moving out, things have accumulated there, unfortunately. But the thing I like about this one is, so I needed a place for all the kits that I'm selling. So I'm selling on Tindie, as most of you probably know as well, and then when I only had one module, it wasn't a big deal or problem. And then I got two, and then I got a whole bunch. So now I have these kits and PCBs up here, and then I have a table that I also should have done a video on that I didn't. I like this mechanism because it's super simple. So it's a flip down table that you just like that, and you have a table. You can also have it out here if you want to. It works by, so you pull it out here, and then there's two of these again belts that holds it, so it doesn't go further out than that, and then you just tip it up and lock it in place. So works really well. And here I have a much bigger surface, and this was important to me. The thought was, again, I have a computer, a laptop there, and an extra screen, and the thought was to work with all the shipping and everything at this point. It's because the printer is over there, the packaging, I still had to work over there, and I don't know, this is a very nice place when I want to make the kits. So I just take down one of the boxes with the components and just lay out like 10 of these boxes like that, and then just sort, and then put in bags and ready to ship away. So it's still a nice place, and I really like it that I can have this mess, that it shouldn't be a mess of course, but it is a mess, and I can have this mess, and you can just hide the mess, which is nice. So another kind of mechanism for making a table, a fold-out table, and so I'm trying different ways of making things fold up and move away, and I really like this one for some reason. This, like, you just get a clean surface here. It's not, I think a truck ran over this board before they sold it to me, but of course it could be painted and all that to make it nicer. But so good way of hiding a workplace. this is another part that wasn't really done. It has turned out to be another place to store stuff. Again, like storage space, because I don't have another storage space. This is just full of stuff, projects that should become or whatever. Like here's scrap pieces of wood and stuff that's been used for building all this or waiting to be built something else. Here's my M1, since me and my half-sister was away playing at the Swedish radio. It ended up here because there's not enough space over there. Things like that. This is from the organ that I disassembled this summer. That I thought of making some kind of keyboard out of, or CV keyboard, maybe something like that. We have my Emigrand and the this is called a Magnus organ in Sweden, at least, and some other stuff. And up here, paper, more paper stuff. Sewing machine, not used very often, but good to have. Laminator, stuff like that, and stuff. And moving again, you see that we are back at the beginning. Here was all my components, just like over there, and I also started on this side with another kind of cabinet with hardware stuff that I didn't have, that didn't need that much room as the ones over in the movable shelves, so they are here instead. Rack screws and M3 screws used for rack and building smaller stuff. But yeah. And this is it. So everything that's left to do is to pack all this up, tear everything down, and just move it away, and hopefully I can get something up and running at the new place somewhat quickly, so I can continue doing what I've been doing here, doing videos about the modular, editing videos, getting kits out to the people who buy my stuff, and of course make more music that I do wish that I could do more of. So hoping to get something up and running again soon. So thank you very much for watching me, watching this, and subscribing to me, following me. If you do that, if you don't, maybe now is a good time to do that when you see all the cool stuff that is happening in here. That's never going to happen in here again, of course, but probably, hopefully, is going to happen somewhere, someplace again. So, again, thanks for watching, and I will see you in another video. Take care. Bye.